Number 10. Rose McGowan. So let's talk about the show Charmed for a second, a solid series that was on air for basically 10 years. The series followed three sisters that discover they are descendants of a long line of good female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. Yes, it was a very fun show, however, just because you play sisters on set does not mean that you're always going to be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling, "They don't pay me enough to do this stuff," only she didn't say stuff. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling, claiming she cried every time that the show got renewed for another season because it just meant more time on a toxic set. Alyssa never shared her comments on the situation, confirming what she was being accused of. Number 9. Richard Gere. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have a face for it or the style. For Richard, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was casted to star line Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, the two didn't get along at all. Their beef was strong and long-lasting throughout the entire production until it finally came to a head one day when Richard was a bit too into one scene and he actually grabbed Sylvester pretty aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. The scene was being filmed on Coney Island, and when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car, which sounds pretty peaceful, and suddenly Richard stormed in, joined him with half of a chicken dripping in mustard, and despite his warnings about the mustard, seriously, it dripped all over his pants. In true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face, threw him out of his car, and the altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, they had to decide between Richard Gere and Rocky. I wonder how quick that decision was. Number 8. Selma Blair. It's funny that this entry involves Charlie Sheen getting a woman fired when he himself has been fired from so many projects because of, well, several reasons. After being fired from 2.5 Men, Sheen returned to the acting world, headlining his own show called Anger Management. It premiered in 2012 with cast featuring Hellboy alumni Selma Blair playing his colleague and friend with benefits on the show. However, Sheen's terrible behavior continued to haunt him from his 2.5 Men days. Blair was very vocal on her problems with Charlie, especially his messy work ethic. Charlie heard and he was having none of that, so he threatened to quit the show if Blair was going to remain a part of the cast. Sheen got his way and Blair was let go after starring in 54 episodes. The show didn't last long though. Who would have guessed that a messy actor being the lead was a bad idea? It got cancelled in 2014. Next up, 7. Shannen Doherty. Unfortunately for Shannen Doherty, she gained quite the reputation in Hollywood for being fired due to issues with her co-stars. She may or may not be making another appearance on this list. Who knows? Guess you'll have to stick around to find out. For the first entry, we're going to look back to the very popular series teen drama 90210, a series following the lives of the Walsh family as they moved from Minneapolis to Beverly Hills. Doherty played the character Brenda Walsh, with her character eventually befriending several students at Beverly Hills High, including Donna Martin, played by Tori Spelling. The series was a hit after its initial season, however, with increased popularity came massive egos. Doherty and Spelling started clashing on set constantly, adding additional drama to the production team that really just didn't need to be there. Considering Tori's father, Aaron Spelling, was the producer on the show, it's pretty simple to piece together what happened. Doherty claimed that she was officially let go for having a haircut that messed up the continuity of the show, but a wig could have fixed that, so better believe Tori Spelling told her papa to boot her from the series. Number 6. Edward Norton. As we all know, Edward Norton didn't last long as the Incredible Hulk in the MCU, only being in one movie in 2008. By the way, I've read some of the comments, and no, Edward Norton was not the first person to play the Hulk on screen. The honor goes to Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby from the original series, and don't you dare get me started on Eric Bana, looking like he's farting every time he turns into the Hulk. The 2008 film was a success, but not a massive box office goat. The studio were at odds and they wanted to keep using the Hulk and incorporate him into the Avengers, but Edward Norton was becoming increasingly difficult to work with. When he was contacted to keep playing the character, he demanded more money from the studio. However, he was already on thin ice following his time filming The Incredible Hulk. While not some wild on-set meltdown, Norton did make some pretty odd choices. For instance, as part of his contract, he was allowed to rewrite the script as much as he wanted, but it still needed to be approved. So he wrote new scripts over and over again until we got the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie with some of Ed's ideas baked into the final script. Kevin Feige claims that the choice to part ways with Ed was not based on money, but instead on Marvel just wishing to hire an actor that embodies the creative and collaboration side of their talented members. Essentially, he was like, Mark Ruffalo's nicer than you and he doesn't write his scripts, so bye-bye. This ended up being a great decision on both parts though, because Mark Ruffalo is fantastic as Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and Edward went went on to make several high-quality films, including a few collaborations with Wes Anderson. Moonrise Kingdom would not have been the same without Edward Norton as Scoutmaster Ward. Number 5. Anne Hathaway. So a fun fact that I was unaware of until today, Anne Hathaway was almost a secondary lead in one of the most universally loved Seth Rogen movies of all time. Knocked Up from 2007 follows Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl as they prepare for the arrival of an unplanned baby after a one-night stand. The cast was packed with stellar comedians like Paul Rudd, Jonah Hill, Leslie Mann, so many more, and the cast almost featured an up-and-coming actor at the time, Anne Hathaway. Anne is famous these days for roles in movies like Princess Diary, Interstellar, and Ocean's 8. These days, she's considered to be at the top of the A-list. In 2013, she even took home her first Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Now, before this though, she actually agreed to be in Knocked Up because she thought the script was great and that Seth Rogen, is Seth Rogen. You work with him every chance you can. However, she eventually decided not to participate in the film after one issue with the script became cause for concern. The scene in question was one of the final moments in the film, which for those of you who have seen the movie know is pretty graphic. The birthing scene in Knocked Up ended up being a combination of Katherine acting and some close-up clips of her cookie. Anne read that part and decided that her first role in a major comedy movie should maybe be something else. Although it was confirmed that it was not going to be her bits and bobs on display, she has a no birthday suit clause. It worked out for everyone though, because Katherine did a great job despite hating the set apparently, and Anne Hathaway is one of the biggest movie stars to date, so good for her. Number 4. Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is one of the groundbreaking actors and directors from the 1960s and 70s New Hollywood, eventually finding his niche in the early 90s, playing villains in movies like Speed, Waterworld, and the live-action Mario Brothers movie, where he plays Bowser. Yes, that exists. No, it's not good. So it came as no surprise when he was casted to play Kristoff, the all-powerful TV producer controlling Truman Burbank's life in the movie The Truman Show. The cast was incredible and included Hollywood heavyweight Jim Carrey as the titular Truman. Anyone with a brain cell would have been excited to be a part of this film, still considered to be one of his best dramatic performances. However, 2 days into filming his scenes for Kristoff, which were only expected to take about 10 days to film, Hopper was unceremoniously let go from the set. Apparently, Dennis had a contract in place with producer Scott Rudin that he would be fired should his work be unsatisfactory. He must have been pretty bad in the role, as the director Peter Weir has been described as extremely reluctant to ever remove an actor from a movie. Reports later surfaced that Hopper was basically half asleep while playing the character, and while Kristoff wasn't written to be like a manic man or anything, he did require some effort to be properly pulled off. Ultimately, Ed Harris stepped in to play the role after production had been desperately trying to replace Dennis to avoid having the film be shut down entirely. Thankfully, that never happened, and The Truman Show has gone on to be one of the most depressingly heartfelt Jim Carrey performances ever. Oh, and Ed actually got nominated for an Oscar, so sorry Dennis, looks like it was a good move. Number 3. Jean-Claude Van Damme. The Belgian actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was just on the verge of coming into his own career as the Muscles from Brussels when he landed a job opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1987's action flick Predator. This sounded like the perfect casting choice. Jean would have worked alongside the likes of Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura. While this may have turned out cool, the reality was that Jean wasn't casted to play one of the Marines at all. Instead, he was casted to play the titular Predator himself. The special effects artists behind the project called the experience with Jean as a hilarious comedy of errors, in which no party knew exactly what the other was expecting. Apparently, nobody actually told him that the role was basically just a glorified stuntman. They were prepared to direct him to just hop around like a frog, but Jean was obviously confused and upset with that choice. According to him, he had just gotten off the boat and was under the impression that he was going to be showcasing his martial arts skills to the world, but instead he was reduced to a massive, slow-moving alien with dreadlocks. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Van Damme was furious and dispirited about spending the entire movie cooped up in a clunky and often ridiculous-looking suit, and he was ultimately fired and replaced with Kevin Peter Hall. The idea that he was just on set being like, I can barely move in this thing, it makes me so happy. Number 2. Janet Hubert. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to the success of the sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's a show following Will as the titular prince, living with a wealthy family in Bel-Air surrounded by cousins, uncles, and of course Aunt Vivian. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Witten, but as a lot of people know, she was recasted after an on-set feud with Will Smith went a little bit too far. According to Will, Janet viewed him as an antagonist in her life. She had been in the business for years, and suddenly Will Smith popped into her life, and she had a tinge of jealousy towards him because he got got into town, got a gig. Well, hey, that's what happens when you're good. She was trying to convince the producers to give her character more screen time and allow her to breathe on camera, but they said no because it wasn't the Aunt Viv show. She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she would be asked to sit out the rest of the series and was replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who is Aunt Viv. Number 1, Thomas Gibson. Thomas made a name for himself, starring as one of the leads of the series Criminal Minds. He was on the show for a few years, and in that time he made quite a few problems for those unfortunate enough to be staff members of the series. There were a few issues over the years that would have warranted some action, like screaming at producers and writers for not doing a good job. But the incident that got him kicked off of the show for good involved, well, a kick. In 2016, Thomas was swiftly fired from the series after an incident with a writer named Virgil Williams. An internal investigation revealed that Thomas kicked Virgil one day during production of an episode that Gibson was actually directing. And as I said, this isn't the first incident on set that really should have resulted in some kind of punishment, because 3 years earlier, in 2013, he pleaded no contest to no juice related reckless driving after being arrested under suspicion of DUI, and 3 years before that, he allegedly shoved an assistant director, Ian Wolfe, during a late night location scene. That led to the studio ordering Gibson to take 8 hours of anger management. According to most people on the set, Thomas was a wild card. Some days he was friendly and accommodating, and the next he went ballistic. Those are celebrities who were fired after a meltdown. Please leave a like down below if you enjoyed the video, follow our channel for more celebrity content every day, and thank you. Number 10, Mike Tyson. So I had trouble landing on just one interview to mention when it comes to this man. He is someone who seems to just bounce back after every single heinous thing he's done. So we're gonna run through a few of them. The first time Mike really hurt his career was in the 80s, and it wasn't even something he said. He was doing an interview with his then girlfriend Robin Gibbs. When the topic of Mike's behavior came up, she said herself that Mike had an extremely volatile temper. Recent reports had also surfaced of Mike getting loud and physical with Robin, something she seemingly confirmed, while Mike just stared at the interviewer the entire time, giving him an evil look. Now, that was one of the first little notches on his belt. That wasn't really a meltdown. As the years went by, more and more controversies came to light, and during a press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he lashed out at a fan in the crowd, hurling a slew of insults and calling them the British word for cancer sticks. It starts with an F and it rhymes with maggot. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career in jeopardy, but he finally drove that nail into the coffin on CP24's Breakfast Television in 2014. After somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show, Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer to promote when the interview took a hard left and went from "So, what's the show about?" to "So, should you even be allowed on stage, you monster?" That's not what he actually said, but apparently that's what Mike Tyson heard, because he stopped answering questions and would instead hurl sarcastic insults. The F word is once again his favorite, and just throws it at him. I don't know if you've noticed, but Mike hasn't been on the news much since then, and probably for a good reason. Number 9, Paula Abdul. Q13 Fox News. In 2012, famous judge and British bad boy Simon Cowell decided to fire his fellow X Factor judge after she went on Fox News and made herself sound like a little bit of a fool. During an interview with Q13, things started out a little rocky thanks to some audio issues causing Paula to hear a station in Texas instead of their own. When they eventually got everything up and running, Paula was just as confusing as she was with the original issues. The interviewers were trying to ask her about her visit to Seattle, where Simon claims that the worst singers that he has ever encountered dwell. Instead of defending the city, Paula doubled down and agreed with Simon. It's not the statement though that landed her in the hot seat, it was actually just the way that she was speaking. Paula had always been a little bit animated in her life, using arms a lot when speaking to people, but she was particularly slurry and seemed like she was under the influence of something. This was just one of several interviews where Paula is noticeably woozy. Simon Cowell has actually claimed the only reason she was invited to host on the X Factor in the first place was to see if she would bring in the American Idol viewers, and when that didn't pan out, he realized the right move to make was to let her go because she's not great on television. Of course, Paula was mad about this and confronted Simon several times, only making that meltdown bigger and bigger. Number 8, Robert Downey Jr. Being a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe means a ton of interviews. Now, Robert had the fortune of playing Iron Man for 10 years, being featured in 11 movies. While doing press for his second round with the Avengers in 2015, he had the misfortune of speaking with a legendarily terrible interviewer, Krishnan Guru Murphy, on Channel 4. Now, I've talked about this guy in other videos for making Quentin Tarantino walk out of an interview, and he is making a return for something pretty similar. The interview is uncomfortable from the very beginning. Christian stumbles through his questions as quickly as he can, with Robert doing his best just to keep things smooth. Instead of asking questions about the movie though, Christian decided to probe Robert about his life in prison and with substance control issues. Now, at first, he's okay and answers the questions, but then Christian brings up his dad and asks if he feels that he escaped his dark past. Robert is visibly anxious and begins breathing pretty heavy to keep himself calm. He asks what they were doing there, and then the team said goodbye. He stood up and walked out of the room, and he said that Christian seemed nice, but things were getting just a little bit too Diane Sawyer for his taste. This was one of the most uncomfortable interview moments in Robert's career, and it's not even close to the worst one for Christian. Number 7, Sofia Vergara. Fans of the show Modern Family will recognize Sofia as Gloria, aka Manny's mom, who is just absolutely hilarious and heartwarming at the same time, even outside of Modern Family. Now, while speaking with Ellen in 2017 about her career and some new projects coming up, Ellen decided to play a game called English Word of the Day. Claiming to be learning Spanish with one word a day, she wished to teach Sofia one as well. Before the segment, Sofia is roasting Ellen for her dislike of cotton, but when Ellen asks if she wants to learn the English word with her, Sofia scoffs and is visibly annoyed, claiming that she speaks English very well. Ellen gives her the word flabbergasted and asks her to define what it means. Not only does she pronounce it correctly the first time, but she knew exactly what it meant. Ellen follows it up with discombobulated, which left Sofia confused and thinking pretty hard. Now, she butchered the word, and while she seemed to be taking things in stride, it turns out Sofia was so frustrated with participating in this game, as she is a bit self-conscious when it comes to her accent. A lot of people consider the segment to be a little bit racist and more cringe-inducing than fun. I've seen the clip. That's accurate. Number 6, Joaquin Phoenix. We understand a dedication to your craft, and Joaquin Phoenix is just a prime example. This dude's acting career has been going steady since he first appeared in the 1989 comedy Parenthood when he was in his teens. Now, while he is seen as one of the greatest actors in recent history, his reputation on set was a little tarnished thanks to a freak out while filming the 2018 solo flick Joker. He appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live to promote the shoot when Jimmy plays a behind-the-scenes clip of Joaquin getting loud and angry at a man named Larry, and the constant whispering behind the cameras before dropping a few F-bombs and storming off this set. When the cameras came back to the studio, Joaquin was frozen in shock and clearly not expecting that clip to ever see the light of day. He is not having a good time. He explained that Larry was a cinematographer who teased Joaquin off set earlier in the day, calling him a diva and referring to him as Cher. In fact, if you're watching the clip and during the outbursts, you can actually hear him say, "You want to call me Cher? How is that an insult?" He then explained that there is a lot of pressure on set, especially in a closed space, like the apartment from the scene that they were filming. He apologized to the audience for having to see him behave like that, which, was met with applause. Because at the end of the day, he's a performer and no harm came from the outburst or the meltdown, and honestly, if Larry's cool with it, so are we. Number 5, Nicolas Cage. The most unhinged man in Hollywood history. One of the few people who somehow managed to star in billions of movies, but has barely seen or kept a cent of that money. During a press junket in 1990, Nick went on a talk show called Wogan to discuss his latest project, Wild at Heart. When the host Terry Wogan announced Nick Cage, he entered with karate kicks, a front flip, somersault. He threw wads of cash at the audience because, hey, he's Nick Cage, why not? And when he finally sat down, moments before the interview actually began, he asked if he could take his jacket off. He proceeds to take his jacket off and the shirt underneath of it, because if people thought Nick Cage was all together, they were proven wrong during this interview. Despite the content being relatively tamed, the entire time you can just see sweat glistening off of Nick's chest, because guess what? Wearing a leather jacket on your bare chest is beyond uncomfortable, especially when there are lights aimed at you. Now sure, it might look cool until you take it off and you just have a heat rash. Nick's always been unhinged, but this meltdown during this interview was truly unique. His behavior in the 90s was apparent and well documented thanks to him literally being in like 2 movies a year. Number 4, Christian Bale. Christian is a very versatile actor, physically physically and of course skill-wise, he's able to shrink and grow his physique seemingly at will. He's played everything from a skinny substance addict to Batman in 2008. Christian starred in the third film of the Terminator franchise, Terminator Salvation, and while he was filming a scene, director of photography Shane Holbert apparently just moved into Christian's eyesight, and this caused Christian to snap out of character and into defense mode. The now infamous audio clip of Christian screaming at Shane to make matters worse, anyone trying to calm Christian down were met with an equally swift verbal lashing. While the cinematographer was just checking a light to make sure that it was in the right place, you know, like doing his job, Bale made it his mission to share his intense feelings with the entire crew. When the audio leaked, Bale apologized for his actions and told the world to praise the crew for their work. Now, while the movie turned out okay visually speaking, the project as a whole is remembered as a terrible Terminator movie, and he gets pretty uncomfortable when he talks about it on stage. Number 3, Paris Hilton. Paris is the originator of the phrase famous for being famous, because this woman made headlines many times over the years for a little bit of everything. In 2011, Paris appeared on ABC to discuss her career, her personal life, and the recent situations she had been dealing with involving stalkers. During the interview, she revealed a few things about her life that had previously been speculated, like the fact that she used a higher-pitched baby voice on the show Simple Life, but had a much deeper and serious tone in real life. But the conversation eventually ventures into uncharted waters. The interviewer asked Paris if she felt that her former friend and protege, Kim Kardashian, had overshadowed her in the eyes of the media. Paris says nothing, looks to her publicist, and goes to stand up. They almost wrapped the interview entirely, but eventually things simmered down and they were able to clear up the air. However, the moment stuck with fans of Hilton immediately and begged the question, why is she so uncomfortable talking about this? And it's because it's true. Well, it turns out the world answered the question for her, because Kim Kardashian's show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, made it big, and Paris Hilton's show was cancelled after one season. So, there you go. Number 2, Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer is not just a terrible person who turned out to be a creepy creepo. He was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of his scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent Tom into a rant about psychiatry, and somehow the topic got into Ritalin and pseudosciences. I don't know, Tom yelled at Matt about knowing more than him about psychiatry, like he had some inside information that he was secretly a therapist, who knows. The interview came at the height of Tom's pretty public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of the interview came when Cruise was asked about his previous criticisms of Brooke Shields taking anti-sad time pills, to which he responded by calling her a glib. I looked up the definition of that word, and it means fluent and voluble, but insincere and shallow. What? This was only one of the several interviews from 2005 that I wanted to discuss today, especially with Tom Cruise. Good lord, that was a rough year for him. When he was with Katie Holmes, he was a nutcase. Just ask Oprah. I mean, ever since the mid-2000s, his career has mainly been Mission Impossible, with only a few small roles to fill the gaps here and there, not the Hollywood superstar that he was aiming to be. And at number 1, my favorite entry, Bobcat Goldthwait. Allow me to start the entry by doing an impression of Bobcat. Thank you. Bobcat may not be much of an actor these days, but in the 80s and 90s, this man was dominating the film and comedy scene. His zany brand of over-the-top, high-energy performance was so well received by any and all who saw him. I can still hear his voice echoing in my head whenever I think of Police Academy. In 1994, comedian Arsenio Hall invited his longtime buddy Bobcat onto his talk show, which unfortunately was in its final days on the air. When he heard the cancellation, Bobcat decided to send a message to the big brains that made the decision, because he spray painted the word Paramount on the wall behind him, throws furniture around, breaks TV screens, all the while Arsenio is just sitting back and laughing. When they returned from commercial, the set was in ruins, and despite that, Arsenio joked that he was like, the worst part is I have to pretend like I'm mad at him. Joke's on him, that wasn't the only talk show meltdown he partook in. A few years after this, Bobcat set a chair on fire on the Jay Leno show for no reason, just for fun. Like he was standing there just going, fire! He was fined over $3,000 and made to replace the chair. Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, he hasn't been asked to be on any talk shows recently.
From Britney Spears to Nicki Minaj, here are the worst celebrity meltdowns in history. First off, Miss Britney Spears. On February 16th, 2007, the Gimme More singer infamously shaved her head. Days later, she shocked the world by furiously attacking a paparazzo's car within a umbrella. The following July, the pop star offered up a bizarre explanation for her violent behavior. I was preparing my character for a role in a movie where the husband never plays his part, so they switch places accidentally, she wrote on her website. I take all my roles very seriously and got a little carried away. Unfortunately, I didn't get the part. But in her 2023 memoir, her opinion on the incident changed. She says, I'd been eyeballed so much growing up, I'd been looked up and down, I had people telling me what they thought of my body since I was a teenager. Shaving my head and acting out were ways of pushing back, Spears adds in the book. After Britney was put in a court-ordered conservatorship in 2008, granting her father and a lawyer control over all her financial and personal affairs, she says she was forbidden from keeping the new shaved look. Under the conservatorship, I was made to understand that those days were now over, she writes. I had to grow my hair out and get back into shape. I had to go to bed early and take whatever medication they told me to take. Our next celebrity meltdown involves Nothing Compares to You singer Sinead O'Connor. Sinead was performing on SNL when a brief moment destroyed her entire career. On October 3rd, 1992, O'Connor appeared on SNL to promote her new album, Am I Not Your Girl? For the second song of the evening, O'Connor had chosen to perform an a cappella version of Bob Marley's song War. Throughout the performance, she stared intently into the camera, and as she sang the final line, we have confidence in the victory of good over evil, O'Connor held a photograph of the Pope directly in front of the camera, ripped it up, saying, fight the real enemy, before throwing the pieces to the floor. The SNL producers were not aware of O'Connor's plan. During the dress rehearsal, she had held up a picture of a child. Everybody at SNL apparently froze after the live performance, unsure how to react, and that the music producer Liz Welch went from jubilation to tears. The executive producer Lorne Michaels said the air went out of the studio and that he ordered that the applause sign should not be used. The audience remained silent and O'Connor returned to her dressing room where somebody found her talking to herself, quote, doing something between poetry and chanting. Our next celebrity meltdown involves Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey. On an episode of American Idol, the former show judges got into a curse word-filled fight. Minaj criticized Carey for being too harsh on a contestant, which the Vision of Love singer responded by saying, I'm sorry, it's just that that's what I do, Nicki. The Anaconda rapper immediately fired back. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry I can't help her, she said, tossing her seat behind her. Maybe I should just get off the effing panel. Let me get off the panel. After leaving the room, Nicki was overheard shouting, shut the F up. Finish the show, I'm done. But that's not the only on-air meltdown Nicki Minaj has had. When accepting her VMA award for Best Music Video, Nicki made a dig at fellow performer Miley Cyrus. While thanking her pastor and other fans, Nicki said, back to this B-word who had a lot to say about me the other day in the press. Miley, what's good? Speaking of on-air meltdowns, Hugh Grant had some rude things to say to Ellen while on her talk show. After she complimented her guest, calling him fantastic, smart, and all those things, Grant responded back by saying, I wish I thought that about you. He also had some rude things to say about Julia Roberts while on the Oprah show. Very big mouthed. Literally, physically, she has a very big mouth. When I was kissing her, I was aware of a faint echo. Again, they would try to get Grant back on track during the interview, mentioning that Julia Roberts was a really good person, in which Grant responded by saying, I wouldn't go that far. Hugh Grant would go on to admit that this current relationship with Roberts is not on the best of terms because of past comments. I've probably made too many jokes about the size of her mouth. She might hate me by now. Michael Jackson seemed to have a meltdown after his infamous baby dangling incident. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here is the story. In 2002, Michael Jackson visited Berlin to accept an award for his philanthropic work on behalf of children, a Lifetime Bambi Entertainment Award. During his stay, the pop star dangled his 9-month-old son, nicknamed Blanket because his face was covered with a towel, over the balcony of the hotel he was staying in. It seemed that what the king of pop was trying to do was show his baby to the fans that had gathered outside his hotel, but the public's response was obviously completely opposite from what Jackson had expected. As soon as photos and videos of the incident were released to the public, the media started criticizing Michael's parenting skills and reckless behavior. Ringo Starr, a former member of the Beatles, got in a serious altercation with interviewer Sherry Hewson. During a live event, she said, "He just sat down, said, 'Okay then girls, what are we doing here? Shall we just get Paul McCartney out of the way?'" This was live, by the way. Anyway, he carries on. "Let's get Paul McCartney out the way." "You want me to talk about Paul McCartney?" I said. "Well, no, you're here." And he said, "No, you don't. You want to talk about Paul McCartney." She continued. He was so angry. It was just so weird. I thought, why? Why? It was just a really weird thing. And then he said to the audience, "Can I tell you all, if anyone wants an autograph, cannot have one, because I don't do things like that." At the end of it, one of the producers came up with one of her little children who was only 4 years old and said that she knew he didn't do autographs, but told him that her daughter was only 4 and she really loves the Beatles. He just stared and said, "Really?" And then he said, "Did you not hear what I just said? I don't sign autographs." Yikes. David Letterman, former host of the David Letterman Show, has made some really weird on-screen moments while interviewing celebrities, and some of these stories are really hard to believe. When he was interviewing Madonna, he stopped the interview and asked her, "Why don't you go and kiss the guy in the audience?" Shocked, she said, "Why are you so obsessed with my love life?" He responded by saying, "Go kiss the guy in the audience. It would knock him out." She responded, "I can't. I've never succumbed to peer pressure." Interviewing Jennifer Lopez, he made the cameraman zoom into a close-up of her chest while saying, "That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good." Ew. David Letterman seems quite rude, but perhaps the rudest interview story has to go to Jesse Eisenberg. While promoting his new movie Now You See Me, the actor seemed to have a meltdown while in an interview, being extremely rude to the interviewer. Out of nowhere, Jesse brought up the often maligned comedian Carrot Top. Before long, it became clear that Eisenberg only brought up Carrot Top so he could mock the interviewer, whose name was Puga, her abilities as an interviewer. "Do you know the comedian Carrot Top? Well, you're like the Carrot Top of interviewers." "Yeah, it's a good thing. Don't cry now. Cry after the interview is over, because otherwise I'll look like I'm responsible for it." Yikes. After this back and forth conversation, Eisenberg half-heartedly performed a magic trick. Puga then asked Eisenberg if he could say her name to the camera. In response, Eisenberg asked Puga to explain what his motivation for saying her name was, like he was performing an acting exercise. When Puga asked Eisenberg to say her name like he was trying to find her in a crowded place, he quietly said her name. Puga then remarked that she would never be able to hear him in a club, and his explanation for why he was being quiet seemed very harsh. He said, "The thing is, I actually didn't want to find you. I actually was hoping to stay alone." After the interview was done, the interviewer said she went behind the curtain and cried. Shia LaBeouf, former Disney star known for his troubled past, turned heads when he wore a paper bag saying, "I am not famous anymore," to a red carpet premiere for his new movie. Just hours before the premiere, LaBeouf found himself sat with a panel in front of a room full of journalists as well as his co-stars. When asked about his decision to star in a movie with so many love scenes, he bent low over the microphone and replied, "When the seagulls follow the trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much." He then got up, pushed the mic away, and stormed out of the conference, leaving the audience and his fellow panelists mystified. What does that even mean? Our final celebrity meltdown involves Miss Ariana Grande. In 2015, Ariana went with friends to a donut shop to grab a sweet treat. Everything was looking good until the employee at the donut shop supposedly turned around behind the counter, and while he wasn't looking, Ariana licked some of the donuts still for sale while saying, "I hate America," and later calling the donuts disgusting. The security footage of the incident went mega viral online, and Ariana quickly went to Twitter to apologize, saying, "Seeing a video of yourself behaving poorly that you have no idea was taken is such a rude awakening that you don't know what to do. I was so disgusted with myself." She said, "I'm not here to make any excuses or to justify my behavior because I can't. I'm just here to apologize."
Number 10. Joaquin Phoenix. We understand a dedication to one's craft, and Joaquin Phoenix is a prime example. Joaquin's acting career has been going steady since he first appeared in the 1989 comedy Parenthood when he was in his mid-teens. While he's seen as one of the greatest actors in recent history, his reputation on set was tarnished thanks to a little freak out while filming the 2018 solo solo flick Joker. He appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live to promote the shoot when Jimmy played a behind-the-scenes clip of Joaquin getting loud and angry at a man named Larry and the constant whispering behind the cameras before dropping a few F-bombs and storming off the set. When the cameras came back to the studio, Joaquin was frozen in shock, clearly not expecting that clip to have ever seen the light of day. He explained that Larry was a cinematographer who had been teasing Joaquin off set earlier in the day, calling him a diva and referring to him as Cher. In fact, during his on-set outburst, you can hear him say, "But you can call me Cher, huh? How is that an insult? She's the best." He then explained that there's a lot of pressure on set, especially in a closed space like the apartment from the scene that they were filming. He apologized to the audience for having to see him behave in such a manner and watching him freak out on set, which was met with applause. At the end of the day, he's a performer, no harm ever came from the outburst. Hey man, if Larry's okay with it, so are we. Number 9, Nick Cage. One of the most unhinged men in Hollywood history. One of the few people who somehow managed to star in a billion movies but has barely seen or kept a cent of it. During a press junket in 1990, Nick went on a talk show called Wogan to discuss his latest project, Wild at Heart. When the host Terry Wogan announced Cage, he entered with karate kicks, a front flip somersault. He threw wads of cash at the audience because hey, he was Nicolas frickin' Cage, man! He finally sat down and moments before the interview truly began, Nick asked if he could just take off his jacket for a second. He proceeded to take off his jacket and the shirt that was underneath it. If people thought that Nick was all together before, they were proven very wrong during this interview. Despite the content being relatively tame, the entire time you can see the sweat glistening off Nick's hairy chest. Cause hey, guess what? Wearing a leather jacket on your bare chest is beyond uncomfortable. Sure, it might look cool until you take it off and you're covered in a heat rash. Nick's always been unhinged, but his odd behavior in the 90s was apparent and well documented thanks to him literally being in a minimal of 2 movies a year. Number 8, Christian Bale. Christian is a versatile actor, both physically and skill-wise. He's able to shrink and grow his physique seemingly at will. He's played everything from a skinny substance addict to Batman. In 2008, Christian starred in the 3rd film of the Terminator franchise, Terminator Salvation. While he was filming a scene, director of photography Shane Holbert apparently moved into Christian's eyesight. This caused Christian to snap out of character and into defense mode. The clip is now infamous of Christian screaming at Shane, but to make matters worse, anyone trying to calm Christian down on the set were met with an equally swift verbal lashing. While the cinematographer was just checking a light to make sure if it was in the right place, aka doing his job, Bale made it his mission to share his intense feelings with the entire crew. When the audio leaked, Bale apologized for his actions and told the world to praise the crew for their work. While the movie turned out okay, visually speaking, the project as a whole is remembered as one of the worst entries in the Terminator franchise to date. Number 7, Tom Cruise. Now, it's one thing to be asking people to join your church all the time. Whatever, not a big deal. But Tom's behavior as a member of society has been rough to say the least. Following the announcement that he was engaged to Katie Holmes in the early 2000s, Tom appeared on an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show that has gone down in history as one of the most chaotic TV interviews of all time. From the moment he walks on stage, he has such a strange energy. He's oddly excited, like he just got told the best news in his entire life. He throws his arms up in the air, he rubs Oprah's shoulders like she's a lamp and he's trying to summon the genie. He revealed to the audience that the excitement was from his engagement to fellow actor Katie Holmes. Awesome, man, but hey, can you please just stop trying to break Oprah? Seriously, Tom jumped on her couch, he grabbed her hands over and over. She couldn't even get the questions that she had for him out because he was just so chaotic. Eventually, Oprah was like, whatever, just bring Katie out. And the cameras followed Tom through the studio as he ran around trying to find her. It looked like a scene from Paranormal Activity. It was horrifying. Tom's energy continued to stay at that level of chaos throughout his entire marriage to Katie, but since they're divorced, he's just nuts. He is just nuts now. Number 6, Will Smith. Wait a minute, when did Will Smith have a meltdown? I'm just kidding, you guys know this one by now. In 2022, Chris Rock was hosting the 94th annual Oscar ceremony when he decided to make a little joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and her hair loss. Good old G.I. Jane joke. Rock expressed his excitement to see Jada in a fictional G.I. Jane movie, and immediately following the joke, Rock stood in confusion as Will Smith made his way to the stage. Will walked up, he adjusted his jacket, he looked strong, confident, he took a firm stance, and then he just smacked Chris right across the face just as hard as he could. He winded up his hand to conjure up the full power that he had inside of him. Initially, this was seen as a planned joke between the two, but then Will started shouting at Rock several times during the ceremony to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. Chris handled the situation well though. He kept his cool, he laughed it off for the cameras, and he brought out the next award presenter, literally the classiest man of the night. He was professional and quick to get the night back on track, but unfortunately an hour later, Will Smith won the Oscar for Best Actor in a leading role in King Richard. He played Richard Williams, the father of tennis superstars Venus and Serena Williams, and during his speech he gave a half-hearted apology for his actions before claiming that the situation was due to his months of portraying the father on set, leaving him with an extreme paternal sense to protect his family. Unfortunately for Will, the slap was enough to get him banned from the Oscars indefinitely, and not just that, but he's been banned from Hollywood entirely, as he is now being seen as an aggressive man with no impulse control. He was fired from any upcoming projects and currently sits at home all day polishing his one and only Oscar while a single tear rolls down his face. Poor old Will Smith. Number 5. Joan Rivers. While speaking with CNN host Frederica Whitfield about her role as a fashion critique on the reality series Fashion Police, Joan did not appreciate the questions that she was being asked. While calm at first, the host claimed that Joan's comments on the show may be considered mean or cold-hearted, but the fans wanted to hear what she had to say. But before being able to even finish that sentence, Joan decided to clap back with, "It's not mean, excuse me," claiming that she says the truth. She's just saying whatever the people on the couch at home are probably thinking. She calls people and their styles ugly on TV. She may be cold, but her words are meant to heal and not to berate. Okay, so everyone who called me ugly in high school was just trying to encourage me? I don't think so. The interviewer then went on to ask Joan how she felt her words were coming across to the audience of both her show and the readers of her book, which apparently featured some pretty dark content about people that Joan just had no business discussing. Joan said, "If you can make something funny in life, do it. Hey, I've got pages and pages of jokes about the events in New York in 2001, but I'm not allowed to say them because they'd make people uncomfortable." Not a good defense, Joni. The final straw came when Joan was asked about the fur coat that she was wearing on the cover of her book and the backlash that she may face from animal rights activists. Well, Joan became furious and decided to leave the interview, but not before calling out Frederica for asking negative questions, for wearing leather shoes, and she reminded her that she made people laugh for over 50 years, okay? Quit asking me why I did this and why are you wearing that. I'm done. She walked off set and was never invited to return again. Number 4. Bobcat Goldthwait. Allow me to start this entry with an impression of Bobcat Goldthwait smelling something that he enjoys. Thank you. Bobcat may not be much of an actor these days, but in the 80s and 90s, this man was dominating the film and comedy scene. His zany brand of over-the-top high-energy performance was well received by any and all who saw him. Heck, I can still hear his voice echoing in my head whenever I think about Police Academy. In 1994, comedian Arsenio Hall invited his longtime friend Bobcat onto his talk show, which unfortunately was in its final days on air. When he heard of the cancellation, Bobcat decided to send a message to the big brains that made that dumb decision. He spray painted the words Paramount on the wall behind him, he threw furniture around, he breaks TV screens, all while Arsenio just sits back and laughs. When they returned from commercial break, the set was in ruins. Despite that though, Arsenio joked, saying, "The worst part of all this is that I gotta pretend like I'm mad at him." Joke's on him, that wasn't the only talk show meltdown that he's partaken in. A few years after this, Bobcat set a chair on fire on the Jay Leno show, for no reason other than just for fun, I guess. Like he was standing there going, "Fire! Yay!" He was fined over $3,000 and made to replace the chair. In case you haven't noticed, he hasn't been asked to appear on any talk shows in recent history. I wonder why. Number 3. Bill Murray. He came, he saw, he kicked his ass. Bill Murray, the star of box office beauties like Ghostbusters, Groundhog's Day, and Garfield, nope, Garfield, can't say it, I can't say it, nope, can't talk about it. Bill was doing a round of press in 2015 when he made an appearance on 2 talk shows equally as smashed. He stopped by MSNBC studios to appear on the show The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. As the show was about to cut to break, Bill tries to sit and he falls on his tall studio chair. In the photo, you can see just how done O'Donnell is with Bill. According to Murray, after he finally got on his feet, he informed the audience that he had just finished doing the David Letterman show. He then went to dinner and had a few glasses of the no juice before stopping by the studio. As you may expect, Bill slurs his way through the entire interview, constantly going off topic to give the classic, "I love you guys, man, you're doing such a good job." Bill actually physically had a meltdown. He started sliding down in his seat to the point where he was almost doing the interview from the floor. I'm not telling anyone to drink no juice by any means, but I think we can all agree that inebriated Bill Murray is quite the hoot. Number 2. Anna Nicole Smith. Anna wasn't just just your average Playboy bunny turned Hollywood sweetheart. No. She was also a spokesperson for a line of dietary products after losing a significant amount of weight herself. At the 2004 American Music Awards, Anna took to the stage to introduce rap star Kanye West, but stumbled and fumbled her way through the entire thing, sparking widespread concern about her health. Her speech has lived on in infamy. She mumbles, fumbles, and tries to sell herself to the audience over and over again. Her former partner, Larry Burkhardt, revealed the sad truth of the situation 10 years after her passing. He said that Anna had been taking medication at the time to help recover from her enhancement surgeries. She had chronic pain in every part of her body and unfortunately did not follow the recommended dosage her doctor prescribed. The night before the show, Anna had apparently suffered a small seizure and took copious amounts of medication to help ease the pain and keep her awake for the award show. The result was Anna appearing to be under the influence of something and Kanye West being brought out to one of the strangest introductions in awards show history. And at number 1, oh look, it's Tom Cruise again. I know, right? Shocker. We know Tom Cruise is insane. There's no denying that. He may be one of Hollywood's biggest and brightest in his early days, but his career and skills as an actor have slowly been going downhill ever since he divorced Katie Holmes. Now, to prove his insanity and rage, let's just talk about an incident that occurred on his latest Mission Impossible movie set. An audio clip was released of Cruise berating several crew members with intense anger. The crew in question were accused of not following the safety protocols that were in place at the time. In his rant, Tom is heard swearing and screaming about the rules and how if he wants something to happen, it's gonna happen. The crew are essentially his minions who must do the master's bidding. The rant went viral, but Cruise actually defended his rant rather than apologizing for it, claiming that he said what he said and the stakes were at an all-time high, so suck it up. While this may have happened at a time when Hollywood was shut down and many productions were on hold, it's no excuse to harass the people trying to make you look good. Those are the celebrity meltdowns that were caught on camera. Did we miss any good ones? Well, let us know in the comments below. If you made it to the end of this video, congratulations! You just won a free cruise! Just give me $100 for a deposit first. You'll get it back, I swear. It's coming. Lightly tap that like button and keep coming back to the channel for more celebrity content. Thanks for stopping beyond the screen today, and we'll see you next time.
In at number 10, Robert Downey Jr. At this point, it's pretty common knowledge that RDJ had a history of drug addiction, but what most people don't realize is that his issues all began at 6 years old. His father was a filmmaker and drug addict who gave his young son a joint to smoke at the age of 6. Downey claims that he was surrounded by drugs as a young child and often used drugs as a way to bond with his troubled father. He believed that when they did drugs together was his father's way of expressing love for him in the only way that he knew how. He nearly ended his acting career though after being arrested several times for possession of cocaine, heroin, and marijuana use before spending a year in prison in 1999, which meant the cancellation of several acting jobs. Director Jodie Foster even caught him doing coke on the set of her movie called Home for the Holidays. She begged for him to get help, but Downey would continue to spiral out of control. After struggling even more with drug abuse between 2001 and 2003, Downey finally was able to kick the habit through a combination of the 12-step recovery program, meditation, yoga, and martial arts training. In at number 9, Vanilla Ice. Way back in 1999, before Jon Stewart was the host of The Daily Show, he was hosting a program on the set of MTV called MTV's Lane 25. On the show, the host would typically make fun of different music videos that had already aired on MTV, and then they would destroy the tape. I don't know why, it was just their thing to do. On one episode in particular, rapper Vanilla Ice came in at number 9 with his song Ice Ice Baby. The rapper was in the studio at the time of the criticisms, and he was planned to take to the set with a baseball bat and break the tape of his own song as per MTV's request. However, things didn't exactly go as planned. The jokes and comments must have really started to bug Vanilla Ice because he didn't just break the tape. Vanilla Ice took that baseball bat to the entire set, smashing everything and scaring everyone in the process. Luckily, he was able to bounce back from this meltdown by reinventing himself as a DIY superstar on different home improvement networks. How ironic would it be though for MTV to call Vanilla Ice and have him build them a new set? That'd be pretty great. I'd love to see that. In at number 8, Alec Baldwin. It is a well-known fact that actor Alec Baldwin has gotten into trouble several times after his interactions with the paparazzi. There's no doubt that these creepy photographers do invade the personal space of celebrities, but that being said, violence has never made them leave you alone either. Baldwin has been at the center of several cases where he was accused and literally photographed physically attacking photographers. The first accusation was in 1995 when he reportedly punched a paparazzi so hard that he broke the man's nose. However, in all of these incidents, Baldwin was never charged. Baldwin had another crazy meltdown on an airplane after a flight attendant asked him to turn off his phone so that they could take off. The actor made a big stink and even tweeted more about his meltdown, saying, "Flight attendant on American reamed me out for playing Words with Friends while we sat at the gate not moving." That is a meltdown indeed when it ends up on Twitter. In at number 7, Nicolas Cage. Back in April of 2011, Academy Award winning actor Nick Cage was arrested in New Orleans on 1 count of domestic abuse and 1 count of disturbing the peace. According to the local police, Cage was witnessed arguing with his wife in front of their home around midnight. Police say that Cage grabbed his wife by her upper arm and dragged her towards their property. He then apparently began to strike cars in the immediate vicinity and even attempted to jump into a taxi when the police arrived. At that point, the police immediately observed that Cage was heavily intoxicated, and so they ordered him out of the cab, which prompted Nick to start yelling. Cage allegedly started yelling, "Why don't you just arrest me?" to the police, which is exactly what happened next. However, even though Nick was taken into custody and charged, his wife apparently did not want him charged and said that there was no actual physical contact between them during the fight. Regardless, still a meltdown. In at number 6, Tom Cruise. It was the couch jump that truly rocked Hollywood and a side of the action hero Tom Cruise that we had never witnessed before. In short, it was a meltdown over passion for his newest love interest, Katie Holmes. At the time, Tom Cruise was one of the biggest celebrities in America, and he was already an established leading man with roles such as Top Gun and Jerry Maguire under his belt. He was appearing on the Oprah Winfrey Show though to promote his upcoming movie, which was Steven Spielberg's remake of War of the Worlds. However, instead of staying on script to his promo material, he could not stop gushing over his new girlfriend. Within 15 minutes of the interview, Tom had leapt onto Oprah's couch as Oprah struggled to find the words for his over-the-top infatuation. I think she just kept yelling, "He's gone. You're gone. This guy's crazy." In the moment, it was this very heartwarming thing to see though, but in hindsight, people watching that clip, maybe through a GIF or just a series of photos, it looks like Tom is acting at a school for an interview, so by all accounts and without hearing the audience's reaction, this was categorized as one of Tom's biggest TV meltdowns. But he was just really happy. In at number 5, David Hasselhoff. We all remember David Hasselhoff from his time on Baywatch, but in 2007 it seemed as though the Hoff had hit rock bottom. The weird part was that his daughter apparently filmed the whole debacle that ended up airing on the news. In the video, David was clearly drunk and apparently a little hungry. As he lay shirtless on the floor with his eyes beginning to shut, he does his best to pick apart a burger and feed it to himself, but the whole time he's doing this, Dave is just babbling in a drunken tone while falling over onto his food. In the video, you can actually hear his daughter Taylor begging him to grow up and even say, "You need to promise me you're not going to get alcohol tonight, okay?" Apparently Hasselhoff had asked his kids to film him anytime he falls off the wagon, I guess so that he can look back on it with shame and get his house in order. What a weird thing to make your kids do. In at number 4, Russell Crowe. Back in 2005, Russell Crowe was in Australia to promote his film that he had coming out. Shortly after 4 o'clock in the morning, Russell was having a difficult time trying to call his wife. So with his room phone not working, he went down to the concierge to use theirs. Crowe then got into an argument with the concierge, which led to him picking up the desk phone and throwing it out of anger and frustration. Unfortunately, in the process of doing this, the phone actually struck the hotel worker in the face. He was then arraigned on charges of second-degree assault and fourth-degree criminal possession of a weapon. By the way, the weapon was the phone that he threw. The Oscar winner then pled guilty, and the judge gave him a conditional discharge, which essentially means that he can't be arrested in Australia ever again. In at number 3, Michael Jackson. That is the king of pop hanging his baby blanket, yes, the baby's name was Blanket, out of a hotel window, Lion King style. This guy consistently buried his controversies by just manufacturing new ones. He was blasted by everyone online, calling him reckless and pointing out that he could have easily dropped his child in that moment, and here was his vague apology.
Any child. Try to kill them? Come on. Stupid. And why would I put a scarf over the baby's face if I was trying to throw him off the balcony? We were waiting to thousands of fans down below.
For someone that was called the king of pop, you would think that he would be able to keep his cool, although these moments clearly show a celebrity that was out of control and in Michael's case, in desperate need of help. In at number 2, Britney Spears. The mid-2000s were certainly not kind to pop sensation Britney Spears. From a bitter divorce to having a very public meltdown, it was only a matter of time before she had her run-in with the law. In 2006, she was driving with her 4-month-old son on her lap when the police pulled her over, which is very illegal, by the way, yet because she's Britney Spears, there wasn't even a fine. Then just a year later, she was charged with a hit and run while also driving without a license. Initially, she was looking at a year in prison for this, but again, she ended up not even spending a minute behind bars. It really is a mystery how she was able to pull herself out of this downward spiral, but what's really concerning is how she managed to escape the law. Fame should definitely not exclude you from the repercussions of doing something illegal. Last but certainly not least, our number 1 spot, Michael Richards. Michael Richards is known for his role as Kramer on Seinfeld. He's funny on that show because he literally literally had Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David writing for him, the two funniest people in the world. Although, when the show ended, Kramer thought that he could just transition into stand-up comedy and be just as funny. Unfortunately, when his set was not going well at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood, he completely lost his mind and just buried his career. Someone heckled him, I guess, and then he went on to a tirade by screaming racial slurs and attacking the audience. It was so bad that a large majority of the crowd just up and left the club in the middle of his act. He was never able to redeem himself after this racist rant, and it will serve as a stark reminder that Kramer was never cool.
Every time I see this backdrop, I think about Kramer f***ing up.
With that though, let's check out some of your comments from the video titled Top 10 Celebrities Cancelled in 2020 Part 3. Zunard says, Johnny Rogers, I named my dogs after you. Johnny and Roger. I posted this on my IG stories too. Thank you so much. This is a true honor, and hopefully your dogs don't start talking really fast because they took my name. I hope I don't pass it on to them. Gaming account says, Johnny is the only cool one. And the hair is longer. Yeah, the hair is getting real long. I don't know. We're gonna have to grow it out Johnny Depp style. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much. You guys are really dropping the compliments on this video. Jim King says, catnap? Really? You can do better than this. Come on, Jim. If you haven't gotten used to my dad jokes by now, then I can't help you. Connor Davidson says, I actually don't get why Gal Gadot is getting hate for that. What's wrong with singing a song with friends who are famous people? LOL. Well, if you listen to the words that they're singing, that's where the anger comes in. People were worried about their grandparents dying from this disease, and here to ease our worries were a bunch of millionaires in their mansions singing, imagine there's no heaven. Yeah, that's what we need right now. Imagine there's no heaven. My grandma just died, and Gal Gadot is telling me, imagine she's just in the ground. Mashia Washington says, thanks Johnny for this vid, I'm about to take a Doja Cat nap right now. You see Jim, some people get the joke. Much love to you, Miss Washington. And that has been the Top 10 Celebrity Meltdowns. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our editors for all their hard work. If you enjoyed this video, then please show us some love by tapping that like and subscribe button. Plus, don't forget to leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on today's list. And for more videos like this one, all you gotta do is tap that playlist when it pops up.
In at 10, Bjork. Oh, Bjork, she has had a rough life. Not only did she have to go through the grueling process of working with Lars von Trier, who she openly hated and admitted to spitting in his face every day, she also had a crazed stalker who ended up killing himself on camera, which in turn was uploaded to YouTube. So you can imagine Bjork would be a little high-strung. Well, back in 1996, Bjork arrived at the airport in Thailand, only to be greeted by paparazzi and reporters wanting interviews. The singer was with her children, and by the time one of the reporters stated, "Welcome to Thailand," she had had enough and began to attack her, knocking her to the ground and striking her repeatedly.
Cool. The British-born journalist was more stunned than injured.
It was not a good look for the singer. Violence is never the answer, but you can also understand a mother wanting to protect her children. Coming in at 9, Vanilla Ice. Remember Vanilla Ice, the one-hit wonder who blessed us with Ice Ice Baby? Ice Ice Baby. Well, he must have known his 15 minutes of fame were coming to an end back in 1999, because he accelerated his demise when he appeared on the MTV Lame 25. Prior to The Daily Show, Jon Stewart used to host a show along with Dennis Leary, Chris Kattan, and Janine Garofalo called MTV's Lame 25, where the host would make fun of music videos that aired on MTV's network and then would proceed to destroy the tape. However, on this particular occasion, the Vanilla Ice guilty pleasure found itself at number 9 on the list. So what went down? Well, the rapper proceeded to show up at the studio, as planned, and took a baseball bat to his tape for this song. However, it didn't stop there. He ended up taking the bat to the entire set, absolutely terrifying everyone in the process, something that definitely wasn't planned.
Popcorn for everybody. Sorry about the set there, guys. Well, the tape's fine. What? Everything else is no.
Coming in at 8, David Hasselhoff. It is common knowledge that former actor David Hasselhoff used to battle with alcohol and drug addiction. But things hit rock bottom for the actor back in 2007 when his daughter filmed him in his Las Vegas home on a bender and eating a burger. The Baywatch legend was seemingly as drunk as could be, so he ordered burgers and sloppily ate them on the floor of his bathroom, wearing nothing but a pair of blue jeans. This video is heartbreaking to watch and listen to because in the background you can hear a 16-year-old daughter begging for him to grow up. However, what makes this video interesting is that his daughter was filming him because David had reportedly asked her to if he were to ever fall off the wagon, and that he did. Thankfully, Hasselhoff got sober and is still a pop culture icon to this day, milking appearances and making the odd cameo in bad movies, even the Baywatch remake.
Because if you get alcohol tonight, you're fired from your show tomorrow. And the doctor is coming over here in the morning to check your alcohol level. and if you have any alcohol in your system, you're going to be fired from the show.
Coming in at 7, Michael Jackson. Back in 2002, Michael Jackson was still considered to be one of the greatest pop stars in the world, which is bizarre to me because at that point we all knew what went down at Neverland. But anyway, I digress. In 2002, Jackson was in his hotel room in Berlin, Germany, where there were a ton of paparazzi present outside of his suite. So what did the king of pop decide to do? Well, he opened up his window and dangled his baby son Prince Michael II over the balcony. The crowd gasped in horror before the singer pulled the baby back and into his arms and went inside. This cemented everyone's belief that Michael Jackson was losing it, both professionally and personally, with the singer spending years following defending his bizarre actions. Coming in at 6, Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr.'s comeback to Hollywood was major news when he was cast as Iron Man in Marvel's first film in the MCU. It was huge for the actor who had openly struggled with addiction for years, even spending some time in jail, and even being fired from his sitcom Ally McBeal after being arrested for trespassing into a neighbor's property. He has an entire list of criminal things he has done in his past, so you can imagine he wouldn't be keen on talking about them, especially when he's promoting a huge blockbuster movie that is essentially salvaging his career. While the folks over at Channel 4 clearly didn't get that memo, with them probing the actor, asking him about his bad boy days and even about his relationship with his father before the actor finally reaches his breaking point.
And I just wondered whether, you think you're free of all of that, or whether that's still something.
I'm sorry, I really don't. What are we doing?
Well, I'm just asking questions.
Walking out, stating, "Sorry, it was just getting a little Diane Sawyer-y." Shots fired. Coming in at 5, Charlie Sheen. Back in 2011, Charlie Sheen gave a somewhat questionable interview on The Today Show about his firing from the CBS sitcom 2.5 Men. He discussed his recovery from addiction, but appeared completely erratic and unhinged while doing so.
Abusing alcohol. It's their show.
Epic behavior. After reading about that, then they observed a guy hitting every mark, nailing every line, every joke.
Not only did he make the word winning iconic and somewhat of a meme, but he also coined the phrase tiger blood, which is apparently what's running through his veins. Of course, as we know, Sheen was fired from the show for bad-mouthing the creator Chuck Lorre, which he discussed in this very strange interview, making the bold claim that his passion is often perceived as anger. Dude, there was nothing passionate about your remarks. Get a grip. Coming in at 4, Kanye West. What could he have possibly done? Well, I think you know. And if not, well, you're in for a treat. Back in 2009 at the Video Music Awards, folks were happily in their seats watching on as Taylor Swift was announced as the winner for Best Female Video for her work on You Belong to Me. She was happy, others were happy, however, not everyone, and certainly not Kanye West, who had to express openly on the stage how unhappy he was. Kanye took to the stage, grabbed the award and the mic from Taylor's hand, stating, "Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'll let you finish, but Beyonce has one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time." The room went silent, everyone was cringing in discomfort, and of course, the camera cuts to Beyonce, perhaps cringing more than anyone. Kanye then left the stage, forcing Taylor to have to deal with the cleanup. Thankfully, Kanye was booted out of the award show for his antics, which resulted in the "Is Kanye okay?" trend that circulated around the internet for a while. Meanwhile, Taylor was crying backstage. But hey, at least she won. Coming in at 3, Shia LaBeouf. Everyone loves Jerry's Deli, is one of the greatest places to grab a sandwich in downtown LA. However, back in 2017, it seems Shia LaBeouf went there for an entirely different reason. He was having a few drinks, until those drinks became a few too many, and when Shia asked the bartender for some french fries, he refused. The actor proceeded to call the server the N-word, but it didn't end there. These racist tirades happened once again, but this time when he was pulled over in Georgia, with Shia proceeding to tell the officer, "You're going to hell. Straight to hell, bro." Both incidents negatively impacted Shia's career, with it becoming public knowledge that some casting directors are too scared to hire him because they don't know what they're going to get. Coming in at 2, Christian Bale. Remember the film Terminator Salvation? Yeah, me either. But apparently it was a thing that happened and we all seemingly missed it. For the best, probably. Well, anyway, back in February 2009, while on the set of this god-awful movie, Christian Bale had a little hissy fit. During one particular scene, a director of photography entered Bale's field of view while he was filming. So, what did he do? He shut it down, stating, "What the F are you walking right through? What the F is it with you? What don't you effing understand? You got any effing idea about, hey, it's effing distracting having somebody walking up behind Bryce in the middle of the effing scene? Give me an effing answer. Why don't you get it?" Yeah, that happened.
What don't you get about it?
I was looking at the light.
Oh, good for you!
Lesson number 1, if you ever find yourself working alongside Christian Bale, don't walk into a shop. Don't even look his way, better yet just leave the building and don't return. Although I will give it to Bale, he had his entire meltdown while doing an American accent. I applaud that. And finally, coming in at number 1, Tom Cruise. Of course, could anything possibly top Tom Cruise's infamous and crazy interview back in 2005 on the Oprah Winfrey Show? No, definitely not. Back in 2005, Cruise was on the top of the world, promoting his newest film, The War of the Worlds, directed by Steven Spielberg. However, things didn't go quite according to plan during his interview with Oprah, who proceeded to ask him about his relationship with actress Katie Holmes. Cruise clearly couldn't read the room because he proceeded to stand up on the sofa and jump up and down, spouting out his love for Holmes. Now, the audience cheered along, but most viewers were uncomfortable and a little scared. Following the incident, his public image took a hit, with Cruise coming off unstable, with folks focusing more on his Scientology beliefs and his bizarre antics. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with that list? Were there any celebrity meltdowns that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Perhaps we can do a part 2.